Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. It's only good indeed. Every bit of clothing ought to make you pretty. You can cut the clothing, grey is such a pity. I should wear the clothes for what I'm pretty. See my tailor, he's called Simon. I know it's going to fit. A little bit of advice, you're quite welcome, it is free. Don't do nothing that is cut price, you know what they'll make you be. They will try their tricky device, trap you with an ordinary. Get your teeth into a small slice, never be bad. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. 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 Is all my brain and body need. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. The wisdom of your ways. I've been there and I know lots of other ways. What a jolly man show. Before you ever do is business you don't like. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll is very good indeed. Every bit of clothing ought to make you pretty. Grey is such a pity. I should wear the clothing of Mr. Walter Mitty. See my tailor, he's called Simon. I know it's going to fit. A little bit of advice, you're quite welcome, it is free. Don't do nothing that is cut price, you know what they'll make you be. They will try their Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll is very good indeed. Every bit of clothing ought to make you pretty. You can cut the clothing, grey is such a pity. I should wear the clothing of Mr. Walter. See my tailor, he's called Simon. I know it's going to fit. A little bit of advice, you're quite welcome in this street. Don't do that and get this cut, cause you know what they'll make you be. They will try this tricky device, trap you with that ordinary. Get your teeth into a small slice, the cake of it, and sex and drugs and rock and roll. 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 Sex and drugs and rock and roll is all my brain and body need. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. It's very good indeed. Keep your silly ways, throw them out the window. The wisdom of your ways, up and down, lots of other ways. What a jolly man show. If all you ever do is business you don't like. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll is very good indeed. Every bit of clothing ought to make you pretty. You you're quite welcome in this street. Don't do nothing at this cut press, you know what they'll make you feel. They will try their tricky device, trap you with the ordinary. Get your teeth into a small slice, the cake of it, and drugs and rock and roll. Sex 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 and drugs and rock and roll is all my brain and body need. Sex and drugs and rock and roll drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll is very good indeed. Sex and drugs and rock and roll is all my brain and body need. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Sex and drugs and rock and roll is very good indeed. Every bit of clothing ought to make you pretty. You can go Mr. Walker, see my tailor, he's called Simon. I know it's going to fit. It's a little bit of paper sugar. Strap you with the orderly. Get your teeth into a small slice and take off it right. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. 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 Sex and drugs and rock and roll is very good indeed. Every bit of clothing ought to make you pretty. You Mr. Walker, see my tailor, he's called Simon. I know it's going to fit. You're quite welcome, it is free. Don't do nothing that is cut past you now. What they'll make you be. They will try their tricky device, trap you with the ordinary. Get your teeth into a small slice and click on liberty.
トム4周年ということで、呼んでいただきました、日本で一番小さい運転歌手、マメ山田でございます。とりあえずとにかく4周年おめでとうございます。みんなアトムのお客さんでね。
アトムさんのお客さんじゃない人いるの？
そんなのいる？
まあ、いや、大体そんな感じで。まあ、いや、そうなんじゃないの。まあ、それ
逆に。
アトムでね、
アトム知らないよ。
これ、カレーの日とか、ラーメンの日とかありまして。あれがね、他のお店よりもうまいんだよね。だから毎月できるだけ行けるようにしてますけども。これからも皆さんよろしくお願いいたします。来月何度も行きますわ。何日だ？19日だっけ？
来月は、来月、
マメさん来月何日なの？
来月、これで話したね。
多分19日だと思う。よろしくお願いいたします。